Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I am so in admiration of you sitting through all of these talks in English all day long. I just applaud you. I am going to talk about frugality, but also about prosperity. Personally, I prefer the prosperity angle, but I think sometimes translators trap themselves in the wrong end of the market by being too frugal. My idea is to look at some of these ideas now and to leave you with some ideas and initiatives that you can use as soon as you leave this meeting to move towards prosperity, of course. First, I'll repeat, this is like a little advertisement here, and it corresponds to something that's been said several times today. I'll repeat it because I think it's important. I'm assuming most of you are members of an association. If not, I won't ask you to raise your hands, but if not, I really think it's important that in an industry as fragmented as ours, people make a point of joining an association. Oh, dear me, this is embarrassing. This is my thinking, right? In translation, there's not one market. There are hundreds of market segments. The very best translators are passionate, even intense, about what they do. The problem I see is that you can be passionate and intense about your market and forget that it's a nano market. So you're really into your part of the market, but the ideas you bring to that market, the advice you give to clients or to colleagues applies to your market. It doesn't apply to the whole thing. And so it's good to talk to other translators and other client profiles to kind of broaden your mind. It also extends your network because as we've repeated today, having peers who are on the same wavelength will allow you to work in a more interesting way and find more jobs. I think the intensity can get kind of too intense sometimes. I don't know about the Greek association. You seem so pleasant and calm. But in the other associations I know, all of us have, it's nobody in this room, right? But we all have the nutcases, you know, the translators who are probably good, but so ranting that they kind of turn people off, okay? So let's just say the passion, for me, passion seriously is a very good thing. Ranting is bad, and you can cross over too easily if you don't keep in contact with other people, and associations help you to do that. Back to my heading. We're going to talk now about building your business model. The subhead was from frugal to sustainable to prosperous. Now, when you start out as a translator, I think it's quite normal that you should be frugal. You should be frugal can be good, right? You're a student, maybe you have student debt to pay off, you're just getting started, you have to buy computers and things, and you don't have clients yet. So as a young translator, you have to be very careful about outflows of money. And I think that's a good thing, and that's quite normal. One of my problems is that I see grown-up translators who remain frugal, sort of over-frugal. So much so that they keep themselves out of the more interesting parts of the market because they haven't got past the idea of, oh, can't spend that, can't spend that, can't spend that. They spend all of their time not spending it, which means they are forced to work like hamsters in a cage, going around and around ever more quickly, with no time to step back and look at how they're working, the type of clients they've got, and why it might be better to go find some other clients. Just to be perfectly clear, my own opinion, and I really like young translators. One thing I like about the SFT, the French Association, for example, is that I have met so many very talented young translators there. And really, it's quite impressive to see how very good they are. I say that because older translators can sometimes get into a what would be the term? Sort of, oh, when I was young, oh, young people today, like that. And okay, maybe there are some non-skilled translators, but the ones in the SFT that I've met are generally very good and very, very serious, and far more serious and focused than I was at that age, because they've made the decision to be translators. They haven't just sort of become translators because they couldn't do anything else. That said, I think I take interns out of solidarity with the profession. I take interns occasionally, and even though they're good, none of what they produce is remotely saleable to my clients. It's just life, huh? I think when you get out of translation school or university, you need 2 or 3 years just to kind of get into it. And during that time, you need revision, you need a mentor, you need revision from somebody who knows what they're doing. Otherwise, you can get into the situation that we also see in France and elsewhere, where translators become isolated from client markets. They live, I think, in caves on mountains and come out occasionally to complain about everything. You want to avoid that, and you avoid that by working with a mentor as you start out, to start out in the right way. I think in my opinion, personal opinion, it takes about 1 million words to be prepared, to be out there as a freelance who can actually deliver work. And for me, 1 million words is about 2 or 3 years, depending on how much you produce. Yes, and I also have a note to myself here that frugality can become a kind of cult, like the translator lifestyle, and that, I think, is a dangerous point. When I talk to translators about business matters, just to be clear, I'm talking about full-time translators, because there is a difference, I think, in mindset if you're working full-time or kind of just doing it a little when you know, something comes in. There's nothing wrong with doing it a little, right? But your mindset and your approach to markets will, I think, be different. Okay, since I established these 3 terms, sustainable for me would be when you're a translator who's been out there for 3, 4, 5 years, your business is working, you're not exactly where you want to be yet, but work is coming in, and you're performing it, you've got a network going with colleagues, and I would say from the very beginning, you should have a reviser in place. For me, that's just basic. It's in the European standard on translation quality, that 4 eyes translation good, 2 eyes not so good, right? So you should definitely have someone revising you. And then, of course, prosperity is what we want. I'm not saying this because I'm money hungry and interested only in money. As I said earlier, one of the reasons to charge money, serious money for what you do, is that clients take you seriously. And you get to determine your conditions of work to a much greater extent. Right. Well, one thing I hear among older translators, or even actually recently a young translator told me this. She thought I made a comment on something she said. She was a complainer, actually. She complained about clients a lot. And I said, you know, it's better not to complain so much, go out and work on your skills. And she said, oh, I read that as very patronizing, Chris. And I, of course, felt very bad about that because I didn't want to offend her. But her next comment sort of offended me. It's not like in the old days, Chris, when you were starting out. Times are different now. And I listened to that and I thought, yeah. But then I thought, too, I have never, ever heard a translator, or interpreter for that matter, say, times are great. Times are wonderful. Like the golden age is always, whoa, back there someplace when things were fine. As long as I've worked, and I've been on the market for about 40 years now, you always had to negotiate with clients. Clients never arrived and said, we have tons of money this month, how much do you want? It doesn't work that way. The market doesn't work that way. This is not to be, I sound like a real old lady here, but it's not to be naive, but I would say that with technology, by which I don't mean even translation memory, but I say with technology, the internet, for example, you can work in a totally different way. Mobile devices allow you to be incredibly more productive in many, many ways. And so, you know, times are not really that bad now. What has happened, and that I do want to talk about, is something that the Anglosphere has been discussing quite a bit recently, the difference between bulk markets and premium markets. In fact, again, it's not just two different, it's a spectrum. They're shades of gray along the spectrum. Bulk market, commodity translation, is where you've got large volumes, short deadlines, low prices. Prices in the bulk markets are going down, and partly because automation is being used for some of it. Because in bulk markets, there may be a legal requirement to translate texts, but the perception by the buyers is that these texts are not particularly important, right? If it's a really important text, if, as I said this morning, if perceived risk is very high, like you could kill somebody, right? Or you could have a serious lawsuit, or your company could lose face, well then suddenly money is found, and translators who know the market better are hired. One problem with this vocabulary, the bulk and the premium market, that I see is that nobody wants to think they're in the bulk market. If you talk to translators, they always say, well, I produce excellent work, so I'm in the premium market. And I don't think it's exactly that. It's not just a question of price per word or per hour, but it's how the clients see you and take you, right? And if risk is perceived as serious, suddenly you're ratcheted up several levels. The implication of that for what I'm saying now is that if I look at the translation markets out there, you have the bottom of the market, cheap, like really cheap, fast, where machine translation in certain language combinations is much better than what humans are producing. Don't kid yourself, right? The bottom end of the market for me is going into machine translation. It's not premium in any way, but there's a need for it, and machines are doing it okay already. I don't know about Greek combinations, but certainly in English, French, and Italian probably, that is the case. You have the middle of the market, which is, can we call that competent bulk? Okay, because bulk is not necessarily bad, huh? But it's competent bulk. And then we have the high end. All right, what I see in my language combination and contacts I have in other countries is that the top end is expanding. Demand for high-end, truly specialized translators is on the rise. And so that's what I like to share with you tonight. I think if you are a good translator, or if you want to be a good translator, you have to aim for the high end of the market. We'll see how in a minute. The middle part of the market is in serious trouble because that's where a lot of demand is, and that's where price pressure is being exerted extremely strongly by the kind of companies that Robert was talking about, large companies that come in and commoditize and pull things down. My comment there is that if you're in the middle of the market, things are going to get worse. And the only solution I see is to move up. And look at how that works here. I'm getting way ahead of my notes here. Anyway, just as a reminder, and as a reminder that finding good clients is not just knowing marketing tricks. To be a successful translator, you've got to get your good clients, all right? And if people say, yeah, but my clients are bad, then I say, okay, find some new clients, right? Because clients are not stupid. Clients can be ignorant. And if they're ignorant, you can educate them. But if they are clients who are totally price-driven from the start, it will be very hard to educate them. That's not part of their priorities. Anyway, so this is just a reminder that if you want to move to the top end of the market, you have to have something to sell. You can't just go out there and say, I'm a translator, right? You have to go out there, have writing skills. You need a specialization or two, and could I add, those specializations have to correspond to some kind of demand. I had lunch with a friend in Paris last week, and he was telling me about his daughter, who's 10, and she had started talking to her parents about what she wanted to do when she grew up. She wanted to be a veterinary, take care of animals. And they said, oh, that sounds nice. What kind of vet? And she said, well, I'd like to be a vet for small animals, only small animals, and kind of fluffy, nice ones. And they shouldn't really be sick, like they shouldn't have a foot cut off or something. They should have sniffles, and I would take care of them and make them better. And they would love me, I think she added. A translator who specializes in only what they love, whether it's small, fluffy animals or something else, is not in a good position. I think you have to get out there and actually see what the market is looking for, see how that resonates with parts of you, and develop those skills, which is, of course, possible. You also need translation skills. It's a given. You have to write very well in your own language, but if you can't move from one language to the other, forget it. But then this part, and this part I really think is important. I know translators who are excellent at what they do. And even the ones who are not nutcases, even the ones who are completely crazy, have a very hard time often going out and talking to clients. There's something about the nervousness of it, something about, I'm good with words, I'm good with my keyboard, ooh, I'm not good at marketing myself, or I've never been good out with industrial people. Okay, my only comment there is, you know something you can learn. You can learn to be better, at least at it. And if not, you can perhaps link up with some good boutique translation companies and agencies who will sell your services for you. Right? And all of this, honing your skills, getting better at what you do, looking for the clients in the right places will take you time and energy and money. Right? When you're a student, you don't have that. But as you move ahead in your career, you have to organize yourself to be able to finance some things. I did make a list of what I would consider the basic minimum sort of things to spend money on. Professional business cards, as has been mentioned. I don't really believe in the usefulness of cards that have printed on the back, printed free by Vistaprint. Do you have those in Greece? That's not good, doesn't look good. I also see a huge difference between cards designed by a professional designer and translators' own cards. Seriously, guys, if we want people to use professional translators, there is a difference between what real designers do, right? I think you should have some kind of web presence. It can be very simple, just your picture and what you do and the contact details, or it can be more developed, but you need to have something out there on the web. You need a computer, all right? You need a broadband connection, high-speed connection, internet connection, and you need software. And may I make an appeal here for using real software, not pirated software, please. You need a dedicated phone line, a phone line that your children are not going to be talking on and stuff like that. And then, this is so frivolous, but I'll say it anyway, you need a business suit. You need some kind of outfit that is not drapey dresses and hippie garb. I like hippies, but when you're in a business context, you have to be better than that, okay? Just to get that out of the way. All right, I thought it would be useful to leave you, I mentioned this earlier, but what I think a good potential client is, this to help you avoid the bad clients, because we don't want them, right? We want good clients. They have to be passionate. You have to be passionate, all right? Cost of failure, risk, they're aware of that. And they've got budgets. Again, they won't tell you they have budgets, but there are ways you can find it out. There are ways you ask questions, and there are ways you position yourself to remind them of the risk, and the way you perhaps use silence to make them feel a little bit nervous and then reassured that you are there to save the day. And then, as I said before, you have to hit them at the right time. You can't go out around the clock calling people to say, I'm a translator, have you got any work for me? That does not work. Okay, let's look at the specific skills we need to move along the spectrum. Writing skills, yeah. You have to be better than 98% of the population because as a translator, you are a professional writer, right? If all you're doing is replacing words, lots of people can do that. So you have to be a good writer. I'm a really big believer in daring to show your work to others, whether through your revisor or in another situation. At the FEET conference in Berlin, we had a translation slam. And I've now participated in 3 of these things, 2 as a participant and 1 just as a kind of organizer. It's inexpensive as an exercise. It's something your professional association can do. You take a short text, you find 2 brave translators, or 3, and you project their work up in front of the room, and participants in the room can get the text if they want to prepare it too. But then you have a discussion, 3 or 4 people talking about, why did you do it that way? Why did you do it that way? There's no reason to be defensive. It's acknowledging in public that there are several different ways to do a translation and thinking together what works best and why does that work best? Does it work because of the sound? Does it work because of the verb form? And I find that so enriching for everyone. It's just great, great, yeah. This is just an excerpt from that excellent little red book in the back of the room about how good revising is, and you can find it online as well. Anyway, I'm going to go through this quickly so we have time perhaps for questions. Okay, this is very tiny, but I will send the PowerPoint to you. It was annotated, so you'll have it. A few months ago, I started getting offers of services from people I didn't know particularly, but Chris, you know, if you ever have any work, I'm here and I can do the work. I don't subcontract, right? But I was curious that they would contact me, and just out of curiosity said, well, I don't know, can you show me something you've done? These are examples of the responses I got, which surprised me very much. I meant to put a big red cross through this, because these are articulate people explaining why they can't show me anything they've done. And I don't care. You know, if you are a professional translator, even if you do a lot of confidential work, you should have a portfolio. You should have some examples of the type of work you do. And if you don't have that and you make up this type of excuse, I don't want to know. And I don't think a good client would want to know either. This is just, I was going to say bullshit, but it's just, yeah, they're kind of, all these reasons why, And that's not helpful. If you're a professional, you should have a portfolio, full stop. I think you should specialize. Everybody talks about this, but make it a real specialization. One of the terms that's used is you should pass the Turing test from Alan Turing. That is, if I do financial communications and banking, I should be able to go into a professional meeting of bankers and during the cocktail hour be able to walk around with a glass in my hand, and everyone should think I'm a banker for at least 10 minutes. All right? And that means that I have to follow the subjects, track the current events, the subjects, the issues, who said what and who is who, and so on. I should be able to participate fully in the types of conversations my clients have. And if I can't do that, I'm not specialized enough. Anyway, this takes time, but there are all sorts of ways to do it. Now you have MOOCs, multiple open online courses that you can start following. There are meetings all the time that are open to everybody in fields where you might be specializing. And I've sometimes translators say, oh, but I couldn't go to that, you know, press conference on monetary policy. They would ask me what I was doing there. I say, no, they won't. Nobody will ask you. And if they do ask you, you don't feel you're entitled to be there. You can say, with an enigmatic smile, you can say, I'm here because I'm specializing in this sector, which I find absolutely fascinating, and stop there. Or you can say, I'm here because I have a big job coming up in this sector next month, and I want to make sure I'm on top of it, and stop there. You don't have to say anything. People go to meetings all the time, and you have to be there dressed in your good outfit, making sense, not being crazy. Right? Yes. In this respect, I haven't looked at your website, so I don't know how translators describe themselves. These are three, again, I'm sorry, it's so tiny, but these are three entries from directories online that translators put up there describing what they do. They are hopeless, all of them. Far, far, far too many sectors in there. And it makes, I think maybe our associations are part of the problem, because we ask translators to tick boxes for the fields, and a translator who's not thinking, oh yeah, I did that, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and they kind of go through. The more fields you put in, the less credible you are. I take somebody's point that in like the Danish to Greek market or something, yeah, you will do a wider range of fields, but there has to be some connection. I'm not saying you should specialize in one thing. There's a colleague in Britain who's a mechanical engineer, and she also translates spiritual text. And you go to her website, and there's the mechanical engineering side and the spiritual side. And that's good, because each type of client goes into their own environment. But if you have a website that has business, law, finance, accounting, banking, construction, IT, trade, legislation, corporate governance, no. Forget it. That means you've done a few documents in each field, and you are not believable. And not in the premium market anyway. So that's a thing to think about, right? I did want to give you a good example. Whoops, I hope this will come on. This is a translator in northern Maine, I think, who specializes in orthopedic devices and documents and biotechnology. Again, you can read it in detail when you get the PowerPoint. But here we have someone who explains exactly what she does and the difference it makes for clients. And that, of course, will not appeal to someone who translates IT documents, but she doesn't want to appeal to them. She appeals to exactly the type of client she wants. And we, each of us who claims to specialize, should be doing more of that. This is another example of a translator into Dutch who does what could also come across as more creative, right? But even here, she gives specific examples of what she does, all right? And that is convincing. That talks to the type of client she wants to get, who want her, they want someone who knows about that type of field. And so I would encourage you to rewrite your marketing materials so that they're more focused. Yeah, this was just, I thought it was entertaining. Kurti Vashi is an MT geek who writes on a blog where he carries on very enthusiastically about machine translation and how wonderful it is. And I thought it was, he was examining this idea of bulk versus premium, very unusual for him, I think. And he actually wrote this, which I think, and it's not against Lionbridge, but Lionbridge cannot, in my opinion, provide the type of quality that you're talking about when you have a real specialist translator, because they don't pay enough. Let's be serious, right? Anyway, so I thought it was interesting that an MT geek who does bulk, volume in his field, would acknowledge this fact. Okay, and the third piece of advice is you should get out of the house. You should come out of your cave, come down off the mountaintop with your good outfit on, and you should get out to client events. And if you're scared and nervous, don't worry about it, because they won't notice you. You can just stand there, and this is, I would say, you know, go to a client event with your ultimate device. You stand in a corner listening to them, because that's what you're there for. Pretend to send yourself a message or something so that you're busy with your phone, and just listen to how clients talk, because you will learn a lot. And you'll learn a lot about interacting with them yourself, right? For the day when you want to try passing your Turing test. There you go. Yes, and there are lots of client venues. That's another speech, actually. I'll just mess with that in passing. I added this slide actually because if we're talking about frugality, translators hesitate to spend money on themselves. Keep in mind that training is also marketing. I probably go to maybe two client events a month, maybe three. Some of those are just, you know, talking about current issues or something. Some of them are training. Here, for example, one of my clients is Danone, the yogurt company, and they are very interested in food safety for obvious reasons. I live in Paris, and I read about a one-day training event out at the far end of France, western end of France, Quimper, on transposing the European Food Safety Directive into French law. Oh yeah, you know, I don't translate specifically on that, but that's a topic that my client likes, right? So I looked into it. Okay, I could get a cheap train ticket. I'm frugal in many ways myself. I could get a cheap train ticket by buying it early. I found a cheap hotel next to the train station out there because I had to be there for a start early in the morning. It cost 125 euros for the day, which in France is cheap for training. Got to the event, there were 40 people. Every single person in the room was a potential client for me, every single one. Head of quality assurance at such and such a place, head of legal affairs at such and such a place, head of marketing at such and such a place. We went around the room, and each person gave their little, I am so-and-so at such and such a place. And I was thinking, what am I going to say here? And that's important. You should have a speech, right? Because you can't talk forever. Yeah. So I said, when it came to me, Chris Durban, I'm a financial translator, but one of my clients is in the food industry, and they're very interested in this issue. That's why I'm here. I'm specializing in it. The very next person after me said, I am so-and-so, head of legal affairs at the factory of such and such, and she turned and said, and I want to talk to you at the coffee break. So the course had not even started, and I'd already picked up a useful client contact. If I think about how much money I spent on that event, that was one day, It was getting out there, so time lost getting out there, but I can work on the train. And I probably invested 500 euros in it. something like that. Not counting my time, lost. Within 6 months, I had a 700 euro job back. 8 months later, had a 1,000 euro job back, just from people I met there. They don't necessarily have work right away, but if you have made an impression because of your nice outfit, perhaps, something. No, or seriously, if you've made an impression because you've talked in an intelligent way and you've asked them good questions, they will remember you. And that's the kind of marketing that you have to do regularly. So you're spending money, but it's actually spending money in you so that you do better work and you find better clients. This was getting out to see clients. The only reason I put this in here was because someone asked me, well, when you interact with clients, is it always in person? And I said, no, I work for the French Railways, in fact. And this, again, read it when you get home or something. This was just to show the type of comments I put into the translations I do to extract information from the client in a friendly way. The nature of language, the way my clients write it anyway, is that it is full of nuances, and sometimes they don't write that well. Sometimes they're not that clear in what they say. And my job as a translator is not to reproduce unclear text. My job is to find out what they want to say so that the translation is better than the original text. That's a given. That's part of the job. And so I just included this because you can see a good translator asks questions. And clients who pay you a lot pay you because you ask questions. Okay? Yeah. Am I good on time here?
Don't worry.
No? Okay. Anyway, what it comes down to for me is, I say, the attitude thing. All right? If I were working for bad clients who were constantly trying to grind me down on prices and didn't pay me until 6 months after, and wanted me to do, every Friday night they would call me and want me to work until Sunday morning or something. No, you don't want to work particularly hard for that sort of person. But my point is that there are many good clients out there. And if you are not going out to where they hang out, you will not even know they exist. And if, in addition, you spend time in negative translator groups, where like the negative waves suck the oxygen out of the room, you will not be able to find good clients. I'm not naive, in fact, because I know there are less good clients, but there are so many good clients out there who are searching, very often unsuccessfully, for the type of specialized translators that they need. Not all the time, but that they do need. And so I would just encourage you to look into that more carefully and to try to get out there. There was some talk about translator visibility, and I will give you an anecdote about that. I always tell translators to do this when I speak in public, right? Go out to where the clients are. I was at a meeting of bankers a couple years ago now, and talking, you don't even have to push too hard. You just sort of say, oh, so tell me what you do. You have a conversation with a couple of people. Bankers wearing suits, right? I was wearing a suit, okay? Across the crowded room, I see someone from the SFT, a fellow translator who's following my advice. He's coming into the banker's hall here. And he says, hi, Chris. And I say, hi, like this. And he comes over. I have my two little bankers here, and we're talking about interest rates or something. And this, seriously, this is a serious thing that actually happened. The translator guy comes up, and I say, to the bankers, this is so-and-so. He's a member of the French Translators Association like me. And one of the bankers looks at him and says, oh, so you're a translator. Can you make a living doing that? All right? The banker, can you make a living doing that? Can you earn a living being a translator? He said it, as far as I was concerned, in a conversational tone. It's just a thing you say, right? In that situation, there is only one answer that's acceptable, just one. Right? Anyway, the answer, of course, is absolutely. It's the best job in the world, and it's particularly interesting for me to get out and see clients because they have so many useful insights. That's the only answer you can give. Unfortunately, this translator, hearing the question, said, it's really hard. It's really hard. Prices are in free fall, and clients just don't understand what we do. They're so stupid. Now, If I had had my official SFT hammer in my hand, I would have hit him on the head, because that's what you cannot say stuff like that in front of a client. It's just stupid. I just stood there and tried to change the subject. But, I mean, you should keep that in mind. You can plan ahead the type of conversations you can have with clients, and you should think about that. Okay, so what you're doing is, this has been said today, you're adding value. That's the point of it, right? I do think that there is something to be said for generosity. That is, I don't bill my clients for every single thing I do. While I was here today, a client phoned to check a word or something. You do that for free. Obviously you do that for free. That's part of your aura or your marketing or your business profile. But I think in addition to being generous, and I hope this doesn't sound bad, they should know you're being generous. I mean, it's nice if they think you're generous. But for questions like that, terminology issues, on my invoices, I actually put phone consultation, and I put a straight line, pour mémoire in French, for free. I do all that stuff for free, but I put it on my invoice to remind the accounts department, if ever anyone complains about my high prices, oh, but Chris does all this extra stuff for us. And that, I think, is useful, to be generous, but to make sure that they know how generous you are. And then the passion part, well, it is. I mean, I'm just convinced that our profession is certainly one of the best in the world. I do work long hours, but I enjoy it pretty much every single day. So, here's my argument, in nice big letters this time, right? I think you can start out in a frugal way because you have to, right? You move on to a sustainable thing where it's working, you know, and I think it should be within the first 3-4 years. If after 3 or 4 years you're still suffering, then you have to start looking more seriously at how you're working and the type of client outreach you're doing, right? And yeah, and a reminder that it's not easy to be a translator. In fact, I think it's very hard. It is. It's a hard job. And it's very intense, and you have to be pushing yourself all the time to do it well. So people who get discouraged after their first 6 months in the business and they don't have any clients, you have to work harder than that. If it was so easy, you know, nobody would earn any money at all. And I'll leave you on that. Thank you very much.